So anyway, we were talking about Chris Matthews and his latest genius comments the other day, which were all about the joke that Mitt Romney made about the birth certificate, and he's just going out of his mind with it. So then last night, Newt Gingrich showed up on Matthews' program. And that was a showdown, not to be forgotten.
Yeah, and we, during the primaries, we were at times tough on Newt Gingrich for some of his policies. But, man, there's nothing more satisfying than when Newt Gingrich gets on a roll and just starts destroying someone on the left. It's why I think Republicans and conservatives like him so much, because he's unafraid, and he really just destroys Chris Matthews here.
This is Newt doing what Newt does best.
In the campaign trail, when you accuse Obama, the president, of being a food stamp president, and everybody gets into the birther fun, and there's we don't know what game that Donald Trump's going to pull this week. He says he wants to go on the offensive with the birther talk. Do you have a problem thinking back on it of having used ethnic politics with terms like food stamp president?
Look, I find your assumption so absurd that it's hard to answer your question. Okay. Let me take the birther thing for a second.
Sure.
What Mitt Romney did the other day, people say, oh, you ought to relax, you ought to be a little bit lighter. So he tells a joke. Now, it happens to be a joke which serves him in a totally different way than you're calculating. It reminds everybody in Michigan that he was born in Michigan. He's a Michigander. Yeah. And the poll that came out this morning, he closed a 5-point gap in Michigan.
Well, how does that justify the use of that reference to birther talk when birther talk has been poisonous?
It was a throwaway line. It's part of common culture.
Yeah. You think it's funny that the president had to show his papers to shut down the birther talk? He had to go to Hawaii and get his documents released. Do you think that was funny?
I think that it is bizarre that people think that it is a challenge to be able to say, I was born there, here's my birth certificate. What's the big deal?
Because it hasn't stopped. Because we got members of your caucus, the Republican caucus, like Louis Gohmert, and these people that keep talking it up.
But is that true?
When has Louis Gohmert talked this up? Louis Gohmert is talking up the birth certificate thing?
I hope that's not true.
I'm totally unaware of it if he is. We'll have to look into that.
Romney was making, by any reasonable standard, he was making what's called a joke.
First one he ever told.
And it was a joke which actually, no, he just said.
Okay, let's listen to the Romney. Here's Mitt Romney telling the joke. If it's
Here's Mitt Romney.
Here's
Mitt Romney. His name is Mitt Romney. You say it 600 times a day. Stop saying Mitt Romney. You're not Scooby-Doo. Mitt Romney. That's not who it is.
Now, I love being home in this place where Ann and I were raised, where both of us were born. Ann was born at Henry Ford Hospital. I was born at Harper Hospital. No one's ever asked to see my birth certificate. They know that this is the place that we were born and raised.
Straight out joke. They're not.
Yeah. It's treated that way by the audience. Everybody knows it. Everybody gets it. Yeah. Except, of course, Chris Matthews.
You know, it's amazing how... you know how African Americans generally, at least people have emailed me in the last couple of hours today.
Stop that. You got to stop that. That's a great qualifier. You know how African Americans, well, at least the ones who have emailed me in the last couple of days, do you really think the people who are emailing Chris Matthews are representative of the entire population? Can you make any generalization based on the people who take the time out of their day to search out Chris Matthews' email address and send him a private personal message? Can you really judge anything by that? The answer to that, of course, is no.
Thank you for helping us with that. Because
you were an undecided voter there for a minute.
I was really trying to work it through.
Do you understand they have a reaction? They think this is racial talk? That this whole thing about welfare cheats is just relentless stuff.
I think there are a lot of people in America who listen to people like you, who tell them all day, every day how they
so it's my influence on them.
You just had a panel where the guy who was black was telling the two guys who were white they were nuts.
Yeah, fine.
Okay. So and the two guys who were white are going, gee, why are you not more sensitive to being black? I think Michael Steele knows he's black. I don't think this is a great shot.
So great.
But you can laugh about it, but you don't think that you've used it in the past. What's a food stamp president?
Food stamp president's a guy whose policies are so destructive that he creates the longest unemployment since the Great Depression, and he puts more people on food stamps, most of them white, than anybody else. Why do you assume food stamp refers to black? What kind of racist thinking do you have? Wait a second. Why you're being a racist?
And listen to the crowd around him that can hear him are starting to applaud and cheer for that.
Yeah.
Why do you assume that I'm talking about black people when I mention food stamps?
Particularly because most of the people on food stamps are white. Why are you assuming I'm making a racial charge when more white people are on food stamps than are black people?
So great.
It's such a great point. It's a point that almost all politicians would be fearful to make. And that is the credit of the one, you look at Newt Gingrich and you give him credit on points like this because he's completely right on this. And Chris Matthews, for as dumb as he is so obsessed by race. The man has a singular focus in life. Every single issue always comes back to race for Chris Matthews. He's completely overwhelmed by it in his life. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know what issues he's dealing with internally, but something weird is going on with Chris Matthews. He's completely obsessed by this issue as if it's, he's in Selma in the 60s. I mean, it's to the point where he sees no progress by anyone who wants lower taxes on the topic of race.
Well, and